This video was made possible by Cyberpower PC UK. The Lands Between was about to change. In a relatively brief period, a number of key events rapidly unfolded that ultimately culminated in the establishment of the Golden Order, an order that would rule over the land to the present day. The true might of the Erdtree faction, despite the formidable Golden armies, was epitomised by one individual, a man whom Marika married, enlisted even, right at the Empire's inception, Elden Lord Godfrey. From fighting the fire giants at the outset of the Age, to warring across the Altus Plateau, descending into Caelid and traversing the Weeping Peninsula, Godfrey's Golden Crusade never knew defeat. He even faced the Stormlord alone, further illustrating both his respect for his adversaries and his unparalleled strength. Once again, by dueling their leader, Godfrey limited the necessary bloodshed and gave the faction an opportunity to survive past their defeat. Presumably, the Stormlord refers to the ruler of Stormvale Castle. Following this victory, Godfrey assumed control of the castle, marked by both an Elden throne and a statue of Godfrey. Stormvale has since remained under the stewardship of the Golden lineage to this day. After the demise of their lord, Stormvale's faction surrendered, and as such, the survivors were incorporated into the Erdtree Empire. The Stormhawks were enslaved. They were chained, and talon swords were affixed to the legs of the Stormvale's warhawks. However, their skills were not overlooked, and the blades were made to be thin and lightweight so as to not obstruct the hawk's mobility, and the birds remain adept guards even in the present day. It appears that humans comprised a portion of the Stormvale faction, as they were also subjected to slavery following Godfrey's triumph. These humans were given a unique task, one that the Erdtree faction had not previously required, nor would need again. Their task was to gather intelligence on a surviving enemy. The company of slaves were ordered to explore the Eternal City. As previously established, Godfrey had only reached Celia by the time the Leonian Wars commenced, placing the fall of Stormvale after the banishment of the Nox beneath the ground. Why the men of Stormvale were specifically chosen for this task remains unclear. In honour of the long-forgotten crest of Stormvale, ancient in design, the Fallen Hawks crafted the inverted Hawk heater shield to symbolise their new journey. However, they likely made this journey sometime later, once the Golden Order had been established. As such, when the band's last embers were used up, they acquired the cold ghost flame which sealed their fate to remain underground. For by that time, such a technique would be deemed heretical, outside of the Golden Order. And then there came a moment when his last worthy enemy fell, whoever that may have been. And it was then, as the story is told, that the hue of Lord Godfrey's eyes faded. Thus did Godfrey become the first Tarnished of the Lands Between. The phrase, as the story is told, is certainly curious, perhaps hinting that this may not be entirely factual. The narrative of Godfrey's tale certainly paints a poetic image. However, Marika's own words paint a different picture.
In Marika's own words, my lord, and thy warriors, I divest each of thee of thy grace. With thine eyes dimmed, ye will be driven from the lands between. Ye will wage war in a land afar, where ye will live and die.
Godfrey's eyes didn't merely fade passively. Their hue was actively taken by Marika. She seized their grace for the sake of retaining the Erdtree's power. Moreover, the moment Godfrey defeated his last opponent was not the same as when Marika intervened. This quote from Marika occurred at the Third Church of Marika. By definition, this marked an earlier conquest than the Fourth Church in the Weeping Peninsula, the now island where Godfrey likely completed his crusade. Instead, it would seem that Godfrey and his army were returning to the capital when Marika broke this news, potentially reaching as far as the smouldering church. Lord Godfrey, at last at the end of his campaign, his golden armies unvanquished and unbowed, yet finds grace lost, tattered, and faded. Only Godfrey knows exactly what Marika said to him that day, but whatever transpired, he harbored no resentment. Despite his unrivaled battle prowess, Godfrey chose not to resist and accepted his banishment along with his loyal army. Now tarnished, they turned and marched toward the Weeping Peninsula, as if embarking on a pilgrimage. Subsequently, at the pilgrimage church, Marika elaborated further.
Then, after thy death, I will give back what I once claimed, return to the lands between, wage war, and brandish the Elden Ring. Grow strong in the face of death, warriors of my lord, Lord Godfrey.
And then, just like that, they were gone. Godfrey and his company set sail from the lands between, carrying with them only a promise that they might one day return to the lands between, to their loved ones. Shipwrecks dotting the shores extend beyond just the Weeping Peninsula, but whether these remnants belong to Godfrey's army remains uncertain. While the Tarnished left the lands between with their kind, one boat alone was said to have been left behind. This lone vessel remains a mystery. Who stayed behind? And how was this known? As far as the confirmed history of the lands between goes, the immediate banishment of Tarnished was absolute until they were called back many years later. The mightiest warrior and his unbeaten army was disbanded. But why? While the emergence of the Golden Order and its societal restructuring will be examined in due course, of importance here is that during the Erdtree age, there was a prevailing ethos of encouraging the rise of power and seeking to conquer the realm. However, once Marika achieved total control, this paradigm shifted. The strong were suppressed to prevent any potential threats to her reign. Yet, even this doesn't fully explain Godfrey's banishment. After all, he was unquestionably loyal and would have served as an effective defender of the Erdtree, right? Godfrey was indeed loyal, and while he did dutifully follow his queen's commands, he was also guided by another, one who never left his side. As King Godfrey's regent, Sarosh, aged counsellor, guides the golden lineage. And it was this relationship with Sarosh that likely drove Marika to banish Godfrey. For there stood one last problem before the Erdtree could truly reign supreme and create the Golden Order.
The Golden Order is founded on the principle that Marika is the one true god.
Moreover,
the forbidden shadow plucked from the Golden Order upon its creation.
As it was for the civilizations before Marika's, there was one faction that truly reigned supreme, safeguarding the realm against stagnation, the dragons, and the power of the glow-eyed queen. Marika's ultimate ambition was to ascend as the one true god, and to take control over the cycles of life through the power of the Erdtree and by sealing away Destined Death. Up to this point, Godfrey's relationship with Sarosh, formerly the Lord of Beasts, had ensured amicable relations between the Erdtree, the beasts, and the dragons. But now, this alliance hindered Godfrey from carrying out Marika's final wish. His sense of honor and loyalty as Godfrey, rather than Hoarah prevented him from betraying such an alliance, a fact Marika surely recognized. In this context, therefore, the phrase, "when his last worthy enemy fell," may be a fitting, broad depiction of Godfrey's timeline, as the dragons were not his adversaries, but his allies. Marika banished Godfrey with a promise of their return, but it is unknown whether this was a meticulously thought-out plan, or a contingency to ensure that Marika did not truly lose her most significant asset. With the Tarnished gone, Marika turned her mind to the dragons. The ancient dragons would protect their lord as a wall of living rock. Without Godfrey, the Erdtree armies would fail in a direct assault on the dragons. Instead, Marika recognized the need for a more subtle strategy to strike the dragons from within, for in their open and welcoming culture lay their true weakness: trust. Marika had finally found a use for her shadow-bound beast, Malekith. See nothing, hear nothing, doubt nothing. Marika's sole need of her shadow was a vessel to lock away Destined Death. Malekith was already empowered by Destined Death himself as a shadowbound beast. He could get close to the Gloam-Eyed Queen without so much as a question being raised. Only Malekith knows what really transpired that day. Was there a mighty struggle? Or did he catch the Gloam-Eyed Queen by surprise? Sacred sword of the Dusk-Eyed Queen, before her defeat at the hands of Malekith. The term defeat implies a substantial battle. It appears that both the Queen's Elden Lord, Fortissax, and her Godskin apostles were present too. Once his god was fled, the Lord continued to await its return. The apostles once said to serve Destined Death, but after their defeat by Malekith, the Black Blade, the source of their power was sealed away. It would seem that Malekith was alone during the battle, but it's possible he received some assistance from the Erdtree Sentinels. However, what's particularly intriguing is the apparent passivity of the defeat. If the injuries Fortissax retains in the present day were inflicted during this encounter, his subsequent actions seem disproportionate. These are the dying wails of the Dragon Lord, a significant defeat. And yet, once his god was fled, the Lord continued to await its return, fleeing within the storm beyond time, a surprisingly subdued reaction. Similarly, despite losing their queen and having the source of their power sealed away, the apostles also chose not to confront their defeat head-on. Instead, they fled with their queen's heirloom, drawn to locations associated with the Gloam-Eyed Queen and the God of Many Faces. Although the Divine Tower in Caelid had already been claimed by the Erdtree Empire, and in typical fashion, slightly adapted with additional pillars, the apostles took back a portion of it. There, they concealed the Godslayer's greatsword in anticipation of the god's return. Malekith, his blade already imbued with the power of Destined Death, now sealed the rune away, thereby eliminating Death's dark fate from the lands between. It is possible he then retreated from Farum Azula, assuming the guise of Gurranq. Perhaps the reaction of the Dragon Lord and Godskin warriors further attests to their culture, one focused on balance and not vengeance. However, though they appeared somewhat stoic in their response, not all dragons shared this sentiment. In an unprecedented turn of events, the dragons launched an offensive attack, soaring straight towards Leyndell, the heart and capital of the Erdtree traitors. The first and only time in history that the ancient dragons acted in such an active, aggressive manner. A great ancient dragon, Grandsax, once rained calamity upon the royal capital, the only time in historical record that Leyndell's walls have fallen. This marks the dawn of the war against dragons. Grandsax alone did what no others ever managed, and their might and size was such that, to this day, their corpse remains as it died within Leyndell, alongside the associated debris. But what is most curious is the pose of Grandsax, and how it is unclear how they died. It would almost seem as though Grandsax rained calamity from above, struck the middle of the Erdtree city with its bolt, and then found no more life within them. Nonetheless, many more dragons followed. Golden Lightning Fortification was used by the Knights of the Erdtree during the assault by the great ancient dragon Grandsax, and the bitter war of the ancient dragons that followed. Interestingly, they were knights, in contrast to the soldiers of the Liurnian Wars being called champions. Perhaps this illustrates the sudden nature of the war, and that the capital was caught off guard. The ancient dragons had scales of gravel stone, and spoken of in legend, red lightning is the weapon wielded by the ancient dragons. Godfrey had been banished, the city unprepared for such an assault. During the war, these twin red lightning stakes were the hallmark of the once ancient dragon, who is now called the mightiest Boulderstone. The once ancient dragon. Might this act of aggression have brought these ancient dragons down to the mortal realm? Between Fortissax, his sister Lanciax, and the rest of the ancient dragons present, the ensuing war was brutal. And without Godfrey, what hope did Leyndell have? Even the mighty tree sentinels were shaken. But after the great ancient dragon Grandsax attacked, the Sentinels had an epiphany. The only way to truly protect the Erdtree was to become dragons themselves. They even created new weapons, whittled from the claws of great ancient dragons. However, only 2 of these grotesque tree sentinels survived to the present day, which may indicate that even these measures were not enough. Radagon remained in Liurnia with Rennala and his children. Godfrey and his army had been banished. Mog and Morgott were chained beneath the capital, and Godric and Godfrey were likely too cowardly to take action. And yet, fortunately for the Erdtree Empire, there was one demigod who rose to the challenge: Godwyn. Long ago, Godwyn the Golden defeated the ancient dragon Fortissax. The routing of the ancient dragons, after they had been driven from Leyndell's walls, Godwyn the Golden fought to the last, earning the friendship of dread Fortissax. The Erdtree Empire was victorious thanks to the might of Godwyn, but also in part due to the nature of ancient dragons, for it seems that the majority remained in their capital, and in the present day, Farum Azula's skies remain beset by dragons. When Godwyn defeated Fortissax, he also befriended his fallen foe, an event that gave rise to the ancient dragon cult in the capital. Lansseax took the form of a human to commune with the knights as a priestess of this new cult, something she would do right up to the present day, and even got close to a Knight of the Round Table hold in later years. The cult was intimate. Only those loved by dragons can survive the ordeal of cladding their bodies in lightning. The cult became well established and supported a hierarchy. There were standard incantations, superior incantations, and even secret incantations. And this union between the members of the Erdtree Empire and the dragons was not born solely out of respect towards each other. The worship of the ancient dragons does not conflict with belief in the Erdtree. After all, this seal and lightning itself are both imbued with gold. Nonetheless, this was a cult, for though the Erdtree and the dragons did not contradict one another, the Golden Order was another story. With Destined Death sealed, the Golden Order could finally be set up, an order that no longer featured the spirals of life, an order that would be absolute, dictating not just how beings should live, but how they are born and how they die. This order held Marika as
the one true God.
But there was another who served an essential role in the Golden Order's establishment, perhaps even one more fundamental than Marika herself. Whether already a part of her or not, all that stemmed from the Golden Order stemmed from Radagon, husband of Rennala.
The mystery endures to this day as to why Lord Radagon would cast Lady Rennala aside, and moreover, why a mere champion would be chosen for the seat of Elden Lord.
Since Radagon does not feature in the war against the dragons, it may be the case that Marika enlisted him on her way back to the capital, where they arrived after its conclusion. Was Radagon always a part of Marika? Was Radagon the central piece to the Golden Order, and Marika a product of bureaucracy? Radagon's story, as previously explored, perfectly maps to the Golden Order. These seals represent the lifelong duty of those chosen by gods. This of course extends to the present day, but may also suggest that Radagon's entire life lay at the whim of the gods, and his brief respite in Liurnia was a rare luxury of freedom that could never have lasted. Radagon had no choice, it seems. Solemn duty weighs upon the one beholden, not unlike a gnawing curse from which there is no deliverance. Indeed, curses are a familiar realm for Marika, from the giants to Hugh. Did she threaten him?
The Erdtree governs all. The choice is thine. Become one with the Order, or divest thyself of it, to wallow at the fringes, a powerless upstart.
There can be no certainty how the events transpired, but ultimately,
Radagon left Rennala to return to the Erdtree capital, becoming Queen Marika's second husband and king consort, taking the title of Second Elden Lord.
The Great Rune dwells within the Amber Egg. That was Radagon's gift to her.
The Great Rune of Unborn Demigods. Presumably Radagon left this on his departure, a hint to his past, or a suggestion for their future. Whatever his intentions, the gift would prove to be a lasting obsession for the heartbroken Carian Queen. Thus was the Golden Order created, an order that would be like no other in history. There have been many that were also monotheistic, manipulated death, that were all powerful even. But here, the Golden Order sought to be absolute, for this order actively crushed those who believed in anything that contradicted it, those that believed in other gods, those that sought power that might threaten the Golden Order, especially from external influences, those that meddled with the creation of life, and later, those who refused to return to the Erdtree. All of them were deemed heretical and actively stamped out. Where the Erdtree Empire was still somewhat lenient in its belief system, the Golden Order took a much more extreme position, enforcing their beliefs on the lands between and beyond.
Heresy is not native to the world. It is but a contrivance.
Now, a proper death meant returning to the Erdtree. Erdtree burials were introduced, awarded as a hero's honour. And, curiously, there were once heroes who walked the battlefields, abundantly blessed by the Erdtree itself, who, upon earning their honour, simply died. Those who made a name for themselves could not be risked, and though the Erdtree burials removed many, sometimes a more active approach was required. And so, the Knights Cavalry were established. The Knights Cavalry were once led by the Fell Omen, and were deliverers of death for great warriors, knights, and champions. Any that rose too high in power, that could be eliminated, found death all too easily. This role was an honour, illustrated by their unique Ash of War, Phantom Slash, skill inspired by the fond remembrances of the Knights Cavalry, creates an apparition of the knight's former instructor who guides a joint, lunging upward swing. This phantom, their instructor, was distinct from their leader, suggesting a well-organised system in place to train up new members. Their leader was none other than the Fell Omen, the title of Margit, the alter ego of the hidden royal omen Morgott. After an age of rotting beneath the capital, Morgott had a revelation. He understood why the Omen had been persecuted. He agreed that they were a threat, and he saw the Erdtree as the one true, pure, and good thing in this world, despite being born without grace. He recanted and sealed away his accursed blood, which reformed into his multicoloured cursed sword, an ever-changing, chaotic amalgamation of all of nature. Through this act, at the very least, Morgott convinced Marika of his true allegiance to the Erdtree. He assumed the title of Margit when out in public to safeguard the royal line, and in time was finally recognised as worthy and became the grace-given lord. Leading the Knights Cavalry, it is no surprise he was seen as the Fell Omen. He ensured any who rose to power were eliminated, serving the Erdtree flawlessly, until that fateful night many years later. The cavalry were formidable and executed a wide range of warriors, illustrated well by the ashes of war they dropped that are clearly not their own. There was the famous Sir Neidhart, knights skilled with the spear. They took down soldiers who had likely excelled in the war against the giants, those infused with poison, as well as bloodhound knights. While demigods were of course out of reach, the Knights Cavalry did target some of their followers, such as the warriors who served Lunar Princess Rani. They even eliminated some Golden Order fundamentalists, and potentially some remaining ancient dragons. Dragon Communion is established by now at the very latest. This is a pure and overwhelming power of those who have hunted dragons and feasted upon their hearts. While a terrible and savage-looking thing, the heart has a peculiar beauty to it. Those extraordinary individuals who perpetuate Dragon Communion are called the Dragon-Hearted. Dragon Communion is a curious endeavour, for communion can mean the sharing or exchanging, or even a relationship of recognition and acceptance. Could this suggest that some dragons encouraged the ritual? Both locations of communion feature statues similar to those in Farum Azula, and bodies of ancient dragons with which the Tarnished communes. One is even termed a cathedral, illustrating the lost power and hierarchy of the belief. Nonetheless, dragon communion certainly came about before one important event: the destruction of Farum Azula, an event that broke the city off from the lands between and left it in the state seen today, severing the land that once joined Caelid to the mountaintops. For such an impactful catastrophe, there is surprisingly little that makes reference to it, and as such, there are many times that it could be placed. It is said the ancient royal city of Farum Azula has been slowly crumbling since time immemorial, so perhaps the meteorite hit in ancient times, in the early days of the lands between. However, immemorial simply means originating in the distant past, or very old. This, in addition to Marika's control of history, and that anything prior to the Erdtree is therefore termed ancient, leaves a lot of uncertainty. Then there is the ruin's greatsword. The ruin it came from crumbled when struck by a meteorite. Could this suggest that Farum Azula was already a ruin before it was struck by a meteorite? If so, then this might place the meteorite after the war against the dragons, after the demise of dragon society. Indeed, this would explain a number of questions surrounding Farum Azula, such as how Malakath, banished knights, and even Drakeblood knights, devoted to dragon communion, all made their way there. Additionally, it seems Godfrey was returning to Leyendell after his campaign's conclusion via Caelid, which suggests the path to the north of the Bestial Sanctum was still present. Or could the meteorite have hit just before the war against the dragons, finally offering a moment of weakness for Marika to take advantage of? After all, Miriel's wording does indicate an otherwise confusing sense of urgency.
When Godfrey, first Elden Lord, was hounded from the lands between.
Whatever the case was, Farum Azula was hit by perhaps the second largest meteorite of the lands between, and the ruin was left floating above the far east of the lands between. Dragon communion came about before this. Banished knights use such incantations within Farum Azula, and the Drakeblood set is also stored in a chest there. From birth, Drake Knights speak not a word. They spend their lives pursuing the strength of dragons, for its sublime beauty and inspiration of awe. Despite such views, the Act went against the Golden Order by seeking power beyond its realm. It was deemed heretical, and participants were cursed, even those of ancient honour like the ancient troll warrior Theodorix, a hero of the war against the giants. It said these land-bound dragons were once humans who partook in dragon communion, a grave transgression for which they were cursed to crawl the earth upon their bellies, shadows of their former selves. Similarly, despite its popularity and the shared gold, the ancient dragon cult remained only a cult, for it would not be allowed by the Golden Order, a nuance illustrated best by the scribe Corrin in the present day, a Golden Order fundamentalist through and through. On giving the Golden Order Principia, he says,
"This is a volume of incantation. It's good to see your enthusiasm. Indeed, I will happily take it off your hands."
And yet, for any other prayer book, including those of the dragon cult, and even the Two Fingers themselves, he says,
"That is a work of heresy. Its incantations bear no lineage from the Erdtree." "Very well. I'll take it off your hands."
The Golden Order was a completely new religion. Likewise, those who created life outside the system of the Erdtree were deemed heretical. The Academy, despite Radagon's abandonment, remained allied to the Erdtree. His icon to this day is stored in the debate parlour, and his Elden Lord statue is set up in the Grand Library. As such, the Sorceress faction sought to erase their previous actions that now
contravened the Golden Order.
The creation of artificial life. The Albinoric's most formidable foes were sorcerers after all. The cuckoos were established by now at the latest, and they were tasked with stamping out the pale life forms. The Knights of the Cuckoos do declare, "Behold thy defiled blood." Though the Leonian faction as a whole ceases its creation of artificial life, the practice is not lost, and many years later, second-generation Albinaurics would arise. The Cuckoos begin as loyal knights, but right from the start they felt resentment towards the Academy. Its left breast is emblazoned with a peering cuckoo, whence came their name. Perhaps the bird's shrewd gaze is an expression of their refusal to be mere servants of the Academy. Like the creation of life, so too was the meddling with death heretical, infamously illustrated in later years by those who live in death. The Golden Order has no mercy for those who trespass beyond life's bounds. Necromancer Gareth, the heretical sage, therefore turns to hiding and the method of snakes to try to bring back his family. There are, however, some who turned away from the Erdtree in the hopes of returning back to nature's cycles that succeeded. The ancestral followers, whose primary residence lies beyond the purview of the Erdtree beneath the ground. They eschew letters and metalworking. They reject runes and gold as much as they can. Instead, they are versed in distinctive spiritual arts. A number of new growths bud from the antler-like horns of the fallen king, each glowing with light. Thus does new life grow from death, and from death one obtains power. The society returned to nature's roots and rejected the monotheistic Golden Order. Though it is difficult to place their emergence, they must have arisen at the earliest after the Golden Order was established in order to reject its control over the cycle of life. Given they are still in the present day awaiting new buds, and instead simply wear the horns of other creatures, it is likely that they arose much later, close to the present. Others whose beliefs lay beyond the Erdtree were not so fortunate. Heresy was absolute, where the Academy simply exiled those it deemed heretical, such as individuals who cast blood or later death sorceries using faith, graven schools, and perhaps even Rani's secret mentor. The Golden Order went far further. The Scorpion's stinger was made, a ceremonial tool used by heretics, crafted from the relic of a sealed outer god. Heretics, plural, and yet other than this weapon, this group of rot worshippers seems to have been entirely wiped out. Melania, with Miquella's help, would later reject the rot in their early years, and only in the years following the Shattering do new followers rise up. The Golden Order must have thoroughly dealt with such heretics. Then, famously, there was the Great Caravan, the ever-moving home of the nomadic merchants, an insular people, but as Tarnished find in the present day, they are still friendly and provide services of great value to the realm. These merchants once thrived as the Great Caravan, but after being accused of heretical beliefs, their entire clan was rounded up and buried alive far underground. Almost every member of this peoples was thrown deep beneath the capital, further down than even the accursed Omen. Then they chanted a curse of despair and summoned the flame of frenzy. This was not the first instance of frenzy in the world. It is said that the sickness of the flame of frenzy began with Shabriri, the most reviled man in all history. Shabriri had his eyes gouged out as punishment for the crime of slander, and with time, the blight of the flame of frenzy came to dwell in the empty sockets. Interestingly, slander is hardly a crime that warrants being the most reviled man ever. Thus, it is what he began to do after the adoption of the Flame of Frenzy that earned such a title, and shows how strong this maddening influence is. In the present day, Shabriri has the power to take over another body, and in Yura's body, his words belie a tricksome nature, one that guilts the Tarnished about
the life of a fair maiden,
in the name of
the righteous path of lordship,
only to then order them to
incinerate all that divides and distinguishes.
Something that would ruin the lives of all maidens and beyond. Sadly, this tactic worked in the past, a story illustrated well by Vike in later years. Curiously, the door barring access to the three fingers seems ancient in design, and the fingers themselves seem withered with age. Thus, it is possible they were sealed away in a previous age, and the nomadic people, the moment they were thrown into the same pit, were fated to succumb to its temptations. During the Golden Order's reign is likely when Malekith became known as Death of the Demigods. Godfrey was gone, and so was his protection. Thus, Malekith stood as the ultimate power of the land, and his control over the Rune of Death stood as a means of keeping the demigods in check. He was aided in his tasks. There were the valiant gargoyles, mended with blackened corpse wax, such is the mark of those who serve Malekith. Perhaps the draconic tree sentinels too. But most important were the vulgar militia. Untiring, unsung watchkeepers. For not only do these men defend the bestial sanctum, but even across the realm, some have been blessed with the power of Destined Death, Malekith's power. As such, their roles can help to highlight what Marika wished of Malekith in these years, freshly singed battlegrounds, effusing with the stench of the dead, forbidden lands that will be excised from the memory of history. This is where the vulgar militia serve. The vulgar militia are the undecorated stewards of rancid, scorched battlefields that none dare approach, and forbidden domains better forgotten by the rest of the world. A silent but very important role, aiding America's control of information. There was but one final act required to complete the Golden Order. One true god. It needed Radagon, but Marika was the Empire's current god. Radagon had returned to the Erdtree capital,
becoming Queen Marika's second husband and king consort, taking the title of Second Elden Lord.
After this union, his children with Rennala, Rykard, Rani and Radahn became demigod stepchildren, a title of status further illustrated by Godfrey, who bore no relation to Marika, and something the finger readers continue to obscure in the present day. But one final act was needed, something likely done in private, a secret in the Queen's bedchamber.
In Marika's own words, O Radagon, leal hound of the Golden Order, thou art yet to become me. Thou art yet to become a god. Let us be shattered, both. Mine other self.
And so, to the present day, Radagon is Marika, one true god. If not already, the Golden Order Greatsword was forged by King Consort Radagon to proudly symbolize the tenets of the Golden Order and to mark his new chapter. Repurposed from the Greatsword bequeathed to him by his first wife, Rennala, he continued to strive to be complete, focusing now on incantations after having learnt sorcery with Rennala. Incantations that center on two key tenets, causality and regression. The pull between meanings, the connections that form the relationships of all things, and the pull of meaning, that all things yearn eternally to converge. The Golden Order sigil illustrates the movement from a tree of worship to the purity of scholarship, depicting the Elden Ring amidst order. His duty weighs upon him, just as Marika's does on her. And soon, he would even begin a new family with his new wife, the twin prodigies, Miquella and Malenia. Thank you for joining for this episode on the Timeline of Elden Ring. For more, consider supporting the channel and get early access to upcoming releases. You can also have your own theories featured in video format on the channel, or even get access to new Lore Before Bed videos ad-free for less than $1. Your support makes content like this possible, so thank you.